The space around the HSS Liberty erupted in blinding flashes of energy as dozens of Zephyrian warships opened fire simultaneously. Beams of pure force that could crack planets struck the small human vessel from every direction. The alien weapons were designed to overwhelm any defensive system through sheer destructive power. Admiral Vorketh watched the attack from his command bridge, expecting to see the primitive human ship torn apart instantly. These weapons had destroyed the fleets of entire civilizations. No vessel could survive such concentrated firepower, but the Liberty did not explode. It did not even slow down. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ship's hull began to change, adapting to each weapon strike in real time. Where energy beams hit the metal surface, the material shifted and transformed, becoming harder and more reflective with each impact. "What is happening?" Admiral Vorketh demanded, staring at his tactical displays in disbelief. "Sir, the target vessel appears to be adapting to our weapons," his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking with confusion. "Our beam weapons are becoming less effective with each shot." Captain Jake Morrison felt the Liberty shake under the alien attack, but he could see from his instruments that the ship was holding together. More than that, it was fighting back in ways he had never imagined possible. "Lisa, what's happening to our hull?" he called to his chief engineer. Lisa. Carter was watching her displays with amazement and growing understanding. "Captain, the adaptive plating is working better than we ever dreamed. The hull is learning from each attack and rebuilding itself to resist similar strikes." The adaptive hull plating had been Dr. Rodriguez's second breakthrough after the Quantum E slip drive. The metal could analyze incoming damage and restructure itself at the molecular level to provide better protection. In laboratory tests, it had shown promise. Under actual combat conditions, it was performing like magic. But Lisa knew they needed to do more than just survive. They needed to show these aliens that humans were not helpless victims. "Captain, I have an idea," she said quickly. "Give me 5 minutes with the fabrication systems. I think we can show them something that will make them think twice about attacking us." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was scared but determined. They were 30 humans facing an entire alien fleet, but they were not going to surrender. Without a fight. "Do it," he ordered. "All hands, prepare for Lisa's demonstration." Throughout the Liberty, the ship's automated fabrication systems came to life. These machines could build almost anything the crew needed, from spare parts to new equipment. They had been designed for long space voyages where replacement parts might not be available for years. Now, Lisa was pushing them far beyond their intended limits. In the ship's manufacturing bays, robotic arms began assembling devices that had never existed before. Using designs that Lisa created on the spot, the machines built new types of sensors, communication arrays, and defensive systems. The work that would normally take weeks was completed in minutes through a combination of human creativity and advanced automation. Admiral Vorketh was becoming increasingly frustrated as his weapons continued to prove ineffective against the human vessel. His most powerful cannons were now barely scratching the Liberty's hull. Each shot seemed to make the ship stronger rather than weaker. "Increase power to all weapons," he commanded. "Focus all fire on a single point. Overwhelm their defensive systems through concentrated force." The Zephyrians had used this tactic successfully for centuries. By focusing all their firepower on one small area, they could punch through even the strongest shields and armor. It had never failed against any enemy they had encountered. The concentrated barrage struck the Liberty's hull with the force of a small star. Energy readings spiked far beyond anything the Zephyrian sensors had ever recorded. The Admiral was certain that no ship could survive such an attack, but when the energy dispersed, the Liberty was still there. Not only had it survived, but the section of hull that had been attacked was now glowing with a strange inner light. "Sir, the target vessel is doing something," the sensor officer reported with growing alarm. "Energy readings are building rapidly. What happened next would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come." The Liberty's hull opened in dozens of places, revealing the devices that Lisa had built in the past few minutes. They looked simple compared to the massive weapons of the Zephyrian fleet, but their effect was anything but simple. The first device activated a communication beam that instantly connected to every ship in the alien fleet simultaneously. No matter how they tried to block it, every Zephyrian vessel received the transmission clearly and directly. The second device began scanning each alien ship in detail, learning their weapon systems, shield configurations, and structural weaknesses in real time. Within seconds, the Liberty's computers had a complete understanding of Zephyrian military technology. The third device was the most impressive of all. It projected a defensive field around the Liberty that seemed to bend space itself. Energy weapons that struck this field were redirected harmlessly into empty space. Physical projectiles simply passed through as if the ship was not there. But it was the message that accompanied these demonstrations that truly shocked the alien fleet. Captain Jake Morrison's voice reached every ship in the Zephyrian formation, translated perfectly into their language by the communication system Lisa had built. "We are the crew of the human vessel Liberty," Jake's voice said calmly. "We came here in peace, seeking friendship with other intelligent species. You have attacked us without cause or provocation. We have defended ourselves, but we have not. Returned your fire." Admiral Vorketh listened to the transmission with growing unease. The human captain's voice was steady and confident, showing no fear despite being outnumbered by thousands to one. "We want you to understand what you are dealing with," Jake continued. "Our ship has just analyzed all of your vessels and weapon systems. We know your capabilities, your weaknesses, and your tactical positions. If we wanted to destroy your fleet, we could do so easily." To prove his point, the Liberty's scanners began broadcasting detailed information about each Zephyrian, shipped directly to that ship's crew. They revealed structural flaws, weapon limitations, and system vulnerabilities that even the ship's own engineers did not know about. "But we do not want to fight," Jake's message continued. "We want to talk. We want to learn about your civilization and share knowledge about ours. We believe that cooperation will benefit both our peoples far more than conflict." The transmission paused, and Admiral Vorketh realized that every being in his fleet was waiting to hear what the human captain would say next. "We are going to withdraw from this area now," Jake announced. "We advise you not to follow us. Not because we fear you, but because we do not want this misunderstanding to escalate into a war that would benefit no one." The Liberty began to move, accelerating smoothly away from the Zephyrian fleet. But before it left, it demonstrated one final capability that left the alien commanders speechless. In the space where the battle had taken place, the Liberty's fabrication systems deployed a series of small devices. These machines began working, immediately repairing the damage that the energy weapons had caused to the fabric of space itself. Areas where the intense firepower had created dangerous gravitational distortions were smoothed and stabilized. The human ship was cleaning up after the battle, making sure that their conflict would not endanger other ships that might pass through the area later. As the Liberty disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Admiral Vorketh stood on his bridge in stunned silence. In 30 minutes, everything he thought he knew about galactic military power had been proven wrong. A single small ship with a crew of 30 had withstood the combined firepower of his entire fleet. It had analyzed and countered their most advanced weapons in minutes. It had demonstrated defensive capabilities that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics. Most disturbing of all, it had done this while maintaining a peaceful attitude and showing concern for the safety of their attackers. "Admiral, what are your orders?" his tactical officer asked quietly. Vorketh stared at the empty space where the human ship had been. For the first time in his long military career, he had encountered an enemy that was clearly superior to the Zephyrian Empire. But they did not act like enemies. They acted like teachers trying to educate slow students. "Send a priority message to the High Command," he ordered finally. "We have encountered a species with technology beyond our understanding. They claim to be peaceful, and their actions support this claim. I recommend immediate diplomatic contact." The Admiral paused, knowing that his next words would change his career and possibly his life. "Also inform the High Command that if these humans decide they are not peaceful, the Zephyrian Empire may not survive the encounter." As news of the battle spread through subspace communication networks, every major civilization in the galaxy began preparing for the possibility that the balance of power had just shifted dramatically. A new player had entered galactic politics, and they had announced their presence by making the Empire's greatest fleet look helpless. But the humans were already focused on more important things than military power. Aboard the Liberty, Lisa Carter was working on plans for new technologies that could heal damaged worlds. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called within hours of Admiral Vorketh's report reaching the Zephyrian capital. For the first time in 300 years, every major civilization in the galaxy sent their highest representatives to the council chambers on the neutral world of Centaurus Prime. Chancellor Quindari of the Atlantean Confederation stood at the center of the massive circular chamber, her blue-scaled hands clasped behind her back as she reviewed the reports streaming in from across the galaxy. The chamber itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, built by 12 different species working together. Today, it would host discussions that could determine the future of galactic civilization. "Members of the Council," Quindari began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's advanced acoustics. "We face an unprecedented situation. A previously unknown species has demonstrated military capabilities that exceed our combined fleets." Around the chamber, representatives from the galaxy's major powers listened with growing concern. The Draconian Empire's Supreme Commander Mordak shifted restlessly in his reinforced chair, his massive claws clicking against the metal armrests. The Aquarian Republic's Admiral Zephyros floated in his specialized tank, his tentacles moving in patterns that indicated deep thought. "The data from the encounter is clear," Quindari continued, activating the chamber's central display. "A single vessel, crewed by 30 beings, successfully defended against the entire Zephyrian battle. Fleet! More concerning, they did so while demonstrating restraint and peaceful intentions." The holographic display showed the battle in detail. Council members watched in silence as the human ship adapted to weapons that should have destroyed it instantly. They saw the Liberty's hull transform and strengthen with each attack. They witnessed defensive technologies that seemed to bend the basic laws of physics. Supreme Commander Mordak was the first to speak. "Peaceful intentions mean nothing if they possess the power to conquer us all. How do we know this is not a scouting mission for a larger invasion force?" "Because they left," replied Admiral Zephyros, his translated voice bubbling through his tank's speakers. "They demonstrated superior capabilities and then withdrew. An invasion force would have pressed their advantage." The representative from the Crystalline Collective, Speaker Vextar, chimed in with tones that rang like musical bells. "The analysis of their technology is most disturbing. Our best scientists cannot explain how their adaptive hull plating functions. It appears to violate several fundamental principles of materials science." Chancellor Quindari nodded grimly. "That brings us to the central question. If this is merely a test vessel, as Admiral Vorketh believes, what capabilities might their full military possess?" The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Every representative understood the implications. If humanity's test ship could defeat the Empire's finest fleet, their actual military forces might be capable of conquering the entire galaxy. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Karen Hayes was dealing with the same questions from a very different perspective. The secure briefing room deep beneath the White House had been hastily converted for this emergency session, with NASA Director Chris Taylor and the military's top commanders. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, President Hayes said, studying the reports on her tablet. One of our test ships encountered an alien fleet, was attacked without provocation, successfully defended itself, and then left the area. Peacefully? NASA Director Chris Taylor nodded. That's correct, Madam President. Captain Morrison followed first contact protocols perfectly. He attempted peaceful communication, avoided escalation, and withdrew when the situation became dangerous. And the aliens think we're some kind of galactic superpower now? General Robert Stone, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, cleared his throat. Based on the intercepted communications our deep space monitoring stations picked up, yes. The alien fleet appears to have interpreted our defensive capabilities as a demonstration of overwhelming military superiority. President Hayes rubbed her temples. She had been in office for 3 years, dealing with economic crises, climate change, and social unrest. Nothing in her experience had prepared her for managing humanity's first contact with a galactic civilization that apparently viewed them as a potential threat. "What's the Liberty's current status?" she asked. "Still en route to Earth," Director Taylor replied. "Captain Morrison has maintained radio silence as ordered, but our tracking stations show they're about 6 hours out from lunar orbit. And you're certain no one followed them?" General Stone checked his notes. "Our deep space sensors show no sign of alien vessels in or near our solar system. For now, it appears they're respecting Captain Morrison's request not to follow." The president stood and walked to the room's large display screen, which showed a map of known space around Earth. Red dots marked the locations where the alien encounter had taken place, highlighting just how far from home the Liberty had traveled during its test flight. "What are our options?" she asked. "Militarily speaking, we have very few," General Stone admitted. "The Liberty's defensive success was based on experimental technology that we can't mass-produce quickly. Dr. Rodriguez estimates it would take years to outfit even a small fleet with similar capabilities. But there's another option," Director Taylor added. "Captain Morrison's report indicates that the aliens were surprised by our peaceful behavior as much as our technology. They seem to expect military superiority to lead to conquest and domination." President Hayes turned back to face the group. "You're suggesting we continue with peaceful contact?" "I'm suggesting we turn our apparent disadvantage into an advantage," Taylor replied. "These aliens have been part of a galactic civilization for thousands of years. They understand military power and political dominance. What they don't seem to understand is cooperation and knowledge sharing. Back on Centaurus Prime, the Galactic Council was reaching similar conclusions, though from a very different perspective. The human's behavior pattern is unlike any species we have encountered," reported Chief Analyst Korthvin, whose insectoid form clicked and buzzed as he spoke. "Their technology suggests a highly advanced military civilization, but their actions indicate a preference for peaceful solutions." Chancellor Quindari studied the behavioral analysis that had been compiled from the encounter data. Either they are exceptionally skilled at deception, or they genuinely believe that cooperation is preferable to conquest. Both possibilities are dangerous, Supreme Commander Mordak growled. "If they are deceivers, they may be planning a surprise attack. If they truly believe in cooperation, they could undermine the established order of galactic civilization." The room fell silent as the implications of this statement sank in. The galactic balance of power had been stable for millennia, based on a system where military strength determined political authority. Civilizations conquered what they could and negotiated from positions of strength. If humanity truly believed in cooperation over conquest and possessed the technology to enforce that belief, it could transform galactic society in ways that none of the established powers could predict or control. Admiral Zephyros spoke into the silence. "Perhaps we should consider the possibility that they are offering us an opportunity rather than presenting us with a threat." "Opportunity?" Mordak's voice dripped with skepticism. "Think about it," the Admiral continued. "How much energy and resources do we spend on military preparedness? How many worlds remain undeveloped because they are too close to hostile borders. How much scientific progress is delayed because our brightest minds are designing weapons instead of exploring the universe? Speaker Vextar's crystalline form chimed thoughtfully. The Aquarian makes a valid point. Our analysis of human technology suggests they have achieved in decades what has taken us millennia. Perhaps their cooperative approach has advantages we have not considered. Chancellor Quindari called for order as the debate began to intensify. Representatives argued back and forth about the implications of humanity's emergence, the dangers of changing established systems, and the potential benefits of cooperation. Finally, she raised her hand for silence. We are debating hypothetical scenarios when we should be gathering facts. I propose we send a diplomatic mission to make formal contact with this human civilization. Absolutely not, Mordak objected immediately. We should be preparing our combined fleets for possible invasion, show them that the galaxy has teeth, and, if they interpret that as an act of aggression, Admiral Zephyros asked pointedly, we have already seen what happens when we attack them first. Do we really want to escalate this situation into a full galactic war? The question silenced even Mordak's objections. Everyone in the chamber had studied the battle reports. The human ship had not only survived the Empire's attack, but had demonstrated the ability to analyze and counter their most advanced weapons in real time. The Admiral raises a valid concern. Chancellor Quindari agreed. However, we cannot ignore the security implications either. I suggest a compromise. We will prepare defensive measures while simultaneously attempting diplomatic contact. She turned to address the full council. All members will contribute ships to a joint defensive fleet. This fleet will position itself. The HSS Liberty touched down at Edwards Air Force Base just before dawn, its hull still showing the strange shimmer that indicated the adaptive plating was slowly returning to normal configuration. Captain Jake Morrison felt the familiar sensation of Earth's gravity as he stepped down the boarding ramp, followed by his crew of 29 other humans who had just become the most important people on the planet. President Hayes was waiting for them personally, along with teams of scientists, military officials, and intelligence analysts. The sight of the president herself greeting them drove home just how much their simple test flight had changed everything. Captain Morrison, President Hayes said, extending her hand. Welcome home. I think we have a lot to discuss. Jake shook, her hand, still trying to process everything that had happened. Madam President, I need to report that we made contact with what appears to be a galactic civilization. They attacked us without provocation, and we were forced to defend ourselves. So, I've heard. Your preliminary reports have been very helpful, but we need every detail you can remember. The decisions we make in the next few days could determine humanity's future in the galaxy. As the Liberty's crew was whisked away for extensive debriefings, similar conversations were taking place across the galaxy. The joint fleet that the Galactic Council had authorized was taking shape near the edge of human space, consisting of over 10,000 vessels from a dozen different civilizations. Supreme Marshal Keth Voran had been chosen to command this unprecedented armada. He was a legendary military strategist who had never lost a battle in over 40 years of service. Standing on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Galactic Unity, he studied the tactical displays that showed his forces assembling. Marshal, the last of the Crystalline Collective's ships have arrived, reported his chief of staff. The fleet is now at full strength. Kethovoran nodded, though his expression remained troubled. A fleet of 10,000 ships to deal with 30 beings on a single vessel. Either we are being extremely cautious, or we are dealing with a threat beyond anything we have faced before. The Marshal had studied every detail of the encounter between the Liberty and Admiral Vorketh's forces. What he had seen challenged everything he thought he knew about military strategy and technology. The human ship had not just survived an overwhelming attack, it had learned from it and adapted in real time. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human solar system, the communications officer announced. Keth Voran straightened. Put it through. What came through was not what anyone in the Galactic Fleet expected. Instead of military threats or demands for negotiation, they received what could only be described as an invitation. President Hayes appeared on the main screen, flanked by Secretary of State Monica Davis and NASA Director Chris Taylor. She looked calm and confident, showing no sign of fear despite facing the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Greetings to the representatives of galactic civilization, President Hayes began. I am Karen Hayes, President of the United Earth Government. We have become aware that our recent test flight has caused concern among your communities. The transmission was being broadcast openly, not just to the fleet, but to communication networks across the galaxy. Billions of beings on thousands of worlds were watching humanity's first official statement to galactic civilization. We want to assure you that Earth has no hostile intentions toward any galactic civilization, the President continued. Our encounter with your fleet was the result of a misunderstanding. We were conducting a peaceful test of our new propulsion system when we were attacked without warning. Marshal Cathaveran listened with growing amazement. The humans were not denying their technological capabilities or making excuses for their actions. They were simply stating facts and offering explanations. However, we understand that our technology may seem threatening to civilizations that have not encountered it before, President Hayes continued. Therefore, we would like to offer a gesture of good faith. The transmission switched to show detailed technical blueprints and specifications. What the humans were sharing made scientists across the galaxy stop whatever they were doing and stare at their screens. Medical nanobots that could cure diseases that had plagued galactic civilization for millennia. Environmental restoration. Technology that could bring dead worlds back to life. Agricultural systems that could feed entire populations on previously barren planets. These technologies are our gift to galactic civilization, President Hayes announced. We offer them freely. With no conditions or demands for payment, we believe that knowledge should be shared for the benefit of all intelligent beings. The transmission paused, and President Hayes looked directly into the camera. We also invite any civilization that wishes to establish peaceful relations with Earth to send diplomatic representatives to our solar system. We are eager to learn about your cultures, your histories, and your achievements. Marshal Keth Voran stared at the screen in stunned silence. In 40 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. The humans were offering advanced technology to civilizations that had just assembled a massive fleet to threaten them. It made no sense from any military or political perspective, he understood. Sir, we're receiving priority communications from across the fleet, his communications officer reported. Ship commanders are requesting instructions on how to respond. The Marshal realized he was facing a situation that no military academy had prepared him for. How do you respond to an enemy that refuses to act like an enemy? Across the galaxy, the human transmission was causing similar confusion and debate. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Emperor Vaxthor was meeting with his advisors to discuss this unprecedented development. They are offering us technology that our scientists say could revolutionize our civilization, reported science advisor Yelkath. The medical applications alone could extend the average Zephyrian lifespan by centuries. It could be a trap, warned military advisor Jorvek. Perhaps the technology contains hidden vulnerabilities they could exploit later. Emperor Vaxthor studied the technical data that human scientists had provided. The medical nanobots were particularly interesting. Zephyrian medicine had struggled for millennia with genetic disorders that affected nearly half the population. These human devices could potentially cure conditions that had been considered incurable. Have our scientists found any evidence of deception in these plans? The Emperor asked. None, Your Majesty. In fact, the level of detail suggests they want us to understand exactly how the technology works. They have even included safety protocols and warnings about potential side effects. Meanwhile, on Earth, the government was preparing for the possibility of actual diplomatic contact. Secretary of State Davis was working with teams of linguists and cultural experts to develop protocols for meeting with alien civilizations. We need to assume that some of these species will want to establish embassies or trade agreements, she explained to her staff. We need facilities that can accommodate different atmospheric requirements, different gravitational preferences, and different cultural needs. NASA Director Taylor was coordinating with Dr. Rodriguez on the technical aspects of the invitation. Are we sure we want to give away our most advanced technologies? He asked. Dr. Rodriguez smiled. Chris, the technologies we're sharing are impressive, but they're not our most advanced. They're applications of principles we developed years ago. By the time any civilization masters these technologies, we'll have developed something even better. You're talking about using our rate of innovation as a strategic advantage. Exactly. We can share knowledge freely because we generate new knowledge faster than anyone else can absorb it. It's like teaching someone to read by giving them books. The more they learn, the more they'll want to learn. President Hayes reviewed the final preparations from the White House Situation Room. Earth's deep space monitoring stations were tracking the movements of the Galactic Fleet, which remained positioned at the edge of the solar system, but had not moved closer since receiving humanity's transmission. Any response from the alien fleet? She asked. Nothing official, reported General Stone. But our signal intelligence teams are picking up massive amounts of communication traffic between the various ships. They're definitely talking about our offer. What about individual civilizations? Secretary Davis checked her reports. We're starting to receive preliminary responses. Several smaller civilizations have expressed interest in diplomatic contact. The major powers seem to be taking more time to make their decisions. President Hayes nodded. She had expected the established galactic powers to be cautious about dealing with humanity. They had the most to lose if the current system changed. What she did not expect was the message that arrived from Chancellor Quindari of the Galactic Council. The transmission came through on diplomatic frequencies marked with the highest priority codes. President Hayes, the Chancellor said in perfect English, her translation systems having quickly mastered human language. I am Chancellor Quindari, representing the Galactic Council. Your offer of technological sharing has created considerable discussion among our member civilizations. The Chancellor paused, and President Hayes could see uncertainty in her alien features. I would like to request permiss. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat in their floating chairs, arranged in perfect circles around the central speaking platform. The dome above them showed the stars of 1,000 systems, each one a reminder of the vast empire they controlled. Ambassador Zekthal stepped onto the platform. His purple skin gleamed under the bright lights, and his forearms moved in patterns that showed his deep worry. The Vorthak Empire had ruled space lanes for over 300 years. They were known for their strength and their ships that could destroy entire planets. But today, Zekthal looked afraid. Fellow council members, he began, his voice carrying, across the silent hall. We face a threat unlike any we have seen before. Our trade routes are no longer safe. Our merchant ships disappear without a trace. Our military patrols send distress signals that cut off mid-sentence. A low murmur ran through the crowd. The Caltharian delegate, her crystal body reflecting rainbow colors, leaned forward. Surely you exaggerate, Ambassador. What force could challenge the combined might of our fleets? Zekthal's large black eyes swept across the assembly. 3 days ago, the cargo vessel Prophet's Dream was found drifting near the Centauri jump point. Half the crew was dead. The survivors were found huddled in the emergency pods, speaking of a ship that appeared from nowhere. He activated a holographic display above the platform. The image showed a massive black warship, its hull scarred with battle damage, but somehow more frightening because of it. Strange symbols were painted on its side in white letters that hurt to look at. They call it the UES Retribution, Zekthal continued. The survivors described it as a moving shadow, 3 times the size of our largest battle cruisers. But size is not what makes this ship dangerous. It is who commands it. The reptilian council leader hissed through his sharp teeth. Get to the point, Vorthak. What species dares challenge us? Humans. The word fell like a stone into still water. Silence spread through the hall. Many delegates had never heard the term before. Others remembered it from old reports, filed away and forgotten. Impossible, declared the insectoid queen, her mandibles clicking. Humans are a primitive species from the outer rim. We cataloged them years ago. They barely have spaceflight. Their weapons are crude chemical explosives. Zekthal's expression grew darker. That was our mistake. We underestimated them then. We are paying for that mistake now. The hologram changed to show star charts. Red dots marked dozens of locations across 3 sectors. Each dot represented an attack, a missing ship, or a destroyed military outpost. The pattern is clear, the ambassador explained. They strike our supply lines, our isolated bases, our patrol ships. They avoid large fleets and fortified positions. But when they do attack, they win. Every single time. A nervous laugh came from the Aquatic Federation representative. Surely you jest. 1 ship against the entire Galactic Council? It is impossible. Tell that to Admiral Korksnul, Zekthal replied coldly. His battle group of 12 ships encountered the Retribution near the Horsehead Nebula. Only 1 ship escaped. The Admiral himself was captured and later released with a message. The hall erupted in shocked voices. 12 Vorthak warships represented enough firepower to level continents. The idea that 1 human ship could defeat them seemed beyond belief. What message? Demanded the council leader. Zekthal hesitated before answering. Leave human space alone or face the consequences. The laughter that followed was harsh and bitter. Several delegates spoke at once, their voices mixing into a chaos of disbelief and anger. Silence! The council leader's voice boomed through the hall. Ambassador, show us proof of these claims. Show us how primitive humans defeated our finest military commanders. The hologram shifted again. This time, it showed battle footage recovered from the surviving Vorthak ship. The images were grainy and broken, but they told a clear story. The human ship moved like a living thing. It twisted and turned through space in ways that defied everything the aliens knew about combat, while the Vorthak ships fired their massive energy weapons in straight lines. The Retribution danced between the beams like it knew where they would strike before they were fired. The human ship's weapons were different too. Instead of trying to overpower the alien shields with brute force, they fired precisely targeted shots that found weak points in the enemy armor. Explosions bloomed along the Vorthak hulls in exactly the right places to disable engines, weapons, and life support. But what impressed the watchers most was the timing. Every human attack came at the perfect moment, when enemy ships were turning or reloading or distracted. It was like watching a master musician play a deadly song. How do they do it? Whispered the Caltharian delegate. Zekthal manipulated the controls to zoom in on the human ship's bridge. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see figures moving with quick, sure motions. The beings were smaller than most aliens, with soft skin and fragile-looking bodies, but they worked together like parts of a single mind. Our intelligence suggests they have a captain named Jake Morrison, the ambassador continued. Unlike our command structure, where the leader gives orders and subordinates obey, human crews seem to function as a team. Each member contributes ideas and solutions. They adapt their tactics in real time during battle. The council leader's eyes narrowed. You make them sound like some kind of super beings. Not super beings, Zekthal corrected. Just different from us. We build bigger ships, more powerful weapons, stronger shields. Humans build better crews. The hologram showed more footage. The human ship rescuing survivors from destroyed vessels, even enemy survivors. Medical bays where human doctors treated wounded aliens with the same care they gave their own people. Engineers working side by side with freed alien slaves to repair. Captured ships. They do not fight for conquest, the ambassador observed. They fight for something else. Something we do not understand. What do they want? Asked the insectoid queen. According to the prisoners they have freed, they want us to leave them alone. They want other species to be free to choose their own paths. They want an end to what they call our cosmic tyranny. The hall fell silent again. The concept was alien to most of the delegates. They had built their civilization on the idea that stronger species ruled weaker ones. It was the natural order of things. Ridiculous, declared the reptilian leader. Strength rules the galaxy. It always has. Perhaps, Zekthal replied. But strength comes in many forms. The humans have shown us a kind of strength we never imagined. The strength of beings who refuse to give up, no matter the odds. He paused to let his words sink in before continuing. 3 human ships escaped our initial contact with their species. The other 2 have never been found. But this one ship, this retribution, has become a symbol. Freed slaves speak of it in whispers. Oppressed colonies sing songs about it. Even some of our own people have begun to question our methods. The council leader stood, his massive form casting shadows across the platform. What do you recommend, Ambassador? We have 3 choices, Zekthal replied. We can ignore them and hope they go away. We can negotiate with them as equals. Or we can hunt them down and destroy them before their rebellion spreads. The first option is clearly impossible, the leader stated. They have already proven they will not be ignored. And the second option is unthinkable. We do not negotiate with primitives. Then we hunt them, the insectoid queen declared, her wings buzzing with excitement. We show the galaxy what happens to those who challenge the natural order. Nods and sounds of agreement rippled through the hall. But Zekthal looked troubled. I must warn you, he said quietly. This will not be like our previous campaigns. The humans will not fight the way we expect them to fight. They will not follow the rules we are used to. And if we fail to stop them, their example might inspire others to rebel. The council leader's laugh was cold and confident. Let them try. The galaxy has one rule. The strong survive and the weak serve. These humans will learn that lesson, or they will die. But as the delegates filed out of the hall, many of them wondered if perhaps the humans had already learned a different lesson entirely. And that lesson was proving to be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined.